What I love about this product is that no sane person would actually make this product. Like if you did product evaluations and you were building this at scale, if you were inside like a major company, you wouldn't do this. And indeed, a lot of the incumbent NAS companies wouldn't build this. But this is the Minisforum N5 Pro. Pro, what does Pro mean? It's using the Pro CPU from AMD. 12 cores, 96 gigs of ECC memory, 5 3.5-inch bays, 2 usable M.2. Well, there's a third one, but we'll talk about that. This is a ridiculously insane NAS platform that is not for the uninitiated and is basically made only for unhinged customers. Let's unpack and talk and take it for a spin. So this unit was supplied by Minisforum, which is great. Thank you, Minisforum. But I'm going to take it for a spin and do some off-label things with it. But I also want to show you, Minisforum's working on their own NAS OS. Is that the in thing to do? Everybody working on their own NAS OS? So if you were researching this, you probably are familiar with the specs already, and if not, if you just like to watch our content, thanks for watching. But this is based around the Ryzen AI. It's a Ryzen 9 AI Pro 370. It's 12 cores, 24 threads. It's a mobile CPU. It's a mobile CPU, and so the number of PCIe lanes that we have for the platform is relatively limited because of that, but it can boost to 5.1 gigahertz, and it's modular DDR5, and so you can get this without memory, add your own memory, supports ECC, non-ECC, whatever you want to do. You will need a Pro CPU if you want to run with ECC. In my mind, there's only really one competing NAS in the market that I know of, other than the one that we built ourselves in another video, and that's the one from AUStar. So you could check that out if you're like wanting to try to compare notes and do this. You might be wondering, why would you build an absolutely unhinged NAS? It's not just for media storage. Media storage can be a part of it, because with media storage you want to do transcoding and things like that on the fly, but this is a platform to begin your journey for self-hosted stuff. Could be just the thing. There's a lot of other content on this channel that is fun things that you can do with your home server setup and home lab. There's a huge Reddit community, you can check that out. You can also check out the Level 1 forums. We're doing all of this kind of stuff since time immemorial. And so when I do these reviews, I sometimes forget to talk about that. But you could do a whole network ad filtering, or malware filtering, I should say. It's malware, the common vectors that malware can come from. DNS filtering for, like child safety, that kind of thing. You don't really need, like, you can, as a parent, you can take control of your network and do stuff on your network. This is the N5 Pro, metal case, 5 3.5-inch bays on the front. The compute thing is in a drawer on the front. It's really easy to do maintenance. We'll talk more about that. So 2 fans at the rear here. There's also 2 more fans internally. We have a 5 and a 10 gigabit LAN. We have a super speed USB type A port. Oculink, that is PCIe Gen 4x4 lanes. So you can go from this to a PCIe slot, which is awesome. There's also a USB 4 port, which we'll try in just a second, a Kensington lock port, HDMI, and 1 USB 2 Type A. It does require an external power brick. It's perhaps one of the misses on this design in terms of, like, I would just rather have an internal power brick. If you're thinking 5 3.5-inch bays isn't enough, you'd like to have expansion, a USB 4 port, I've been running ZFS with external USB disk enclosures. And while that is not an optimal situation, you can actually add 3, 4, 5 more 3.5-inch bays via a direct attached USB storage, and that's basically okay as long as you get a good chipset. Done some videos on that as well, so check those out. Don't have to get into that here, but yeah, if you're building like a storage server in an apartment or something like that, and you're limited on space, and 5 20 terabyte hard drives or 27 terabyte hard drives, or whatever, how crazy you want to go isn't going to cut it, yeah, you can add some more. That'll work. Also, in the accessory box, you have this magical little breakout board. This will let you run U.2 drives in the bottom. I'll show you more about how that works in just a second. They also bundle a network cord, a power cord, and a HDMI cord. Then in the very bottom, we have a power brick. 19 volts, 279 watts. 279 watts? Why is it 279 watts? Ah, because it has a PCIe expansion slot. It's 4 Gen 4 lanes, even though it's full physical X/16, so it can deliver 75 watts to that PCIe slot. Now this PCB is a lot of fun from Minisforum. This is going to adapt your M.2 into U.2. Well, you still got one 2280 M.2 that you can use for your boot drive, and then you've got two 2-lane U.2. Kioxia, CM5, CD5, CD6. Will it fit? These are 15mm drives.
The explanation to these and other electric questions, same bat time, same bat channel.
If you're going to run dual 15mm drives, note that you can only fit a 15mm drive on one side with the fan, and you do need the fan to keep the LAN cool. With the HDMI out, can you use this as a living room machine? Like, can you just run a cable from the HDMI to your living room TV or whatever and use it for media? Mostly yes, it depends on the operating system that you use. Minisforum has their own Debian-based Minis OS that they're experimenting with. It doesn't have nearly as many features as TrueNAS or Unraid or any of the other popular NAS operating systems, but it does have a lot of features, and you can use it, and it's fine, and that's what you get out of the box. This one is configured with 128 gigs of storage. It is a PCIe M.2, but it's one lane. So understand that the 3 M.2 slots on the bottom, the operating system drive has one single lane. That means it's going to top out at most 2 gigabytes per second. The other two M.2 are 2 lanes each, so they will top out at most 4 gigabytes per second when used with a Gen 4 SSD. That actually makes them use less power and run less hot, but there's 2 fans in the bottom, so I don't think that's really much of an issue. On the front, we've got a power button, a status LED, LAN 1, LAN 2, disk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a USB 4 port, and another super speed Type A port. My sound meter is running at about 34 dB from a distance of about 1 foot. That's with no drives. The drives will make it a little louder. We are currently booting up at 14 watts of power usage, but idle will be a little lower at about 7.6 watts, again with no drives. With drives, without drives, it depends on whether or not your NAS operating system will let the drives go to sleep. If the drives go to sleep, they're going to use like a watt or less. Not a big deal, it means the motor spins down. If your NAS operating system keeps the drives spun up and running all the time, it'll be a few more watts, but suffice it to say, when this thing is idle, even if you put 5 drives in here, it's going to be 100 watts or less. And if you have power management and you enable drive spin down and all that sort of stuff, it's going to idle at well under 20 watts. But in a minute, I'm going to show you adding enterprise U.2 SSDs. They will idle a bit higher. Now when it boots, you just have the logo. That's cool. The IP address is in the top right corner where you can get to it on your local network. You don't have to download the app. If you look at the Minis Cloud OS setup, you can download a Windows or Mac OS app and it'll help you configure it, but you can also just go there in the browser. You can also hit Control F2 and get a Debian thing. You can also edit the bootloader and reset the root password. You know, just depending on how you want to rock. Now, the disk trays, there's not much to say about those. They are toolless. They will accept a 3.5-inch drive toollessly. It's a very similar design to Synology. There are also holes in the bottom if you want to mount 2.5-inch drives. There's gold fingers on the edge here which connect to the back plane and the rest of the system, but other than that, it's pretty self-contained. And the motherboard layout should look familiar. There's that half-height, half-length expansion slot. And then on the other side we have our M.2. Look, they've got their own fan. And yes, it will accept 110mm M.2. Nice, if you can find some cast-off enterprise M.2. There you go. They've also added a PCIe fan header. So if you are going to have something obscene, like a 25 gig NIC, you could add a blower-style fan to it with the header. Oh, don't mind me just taking the hard drive out and putting it in another machine so that I can reset the password. There wasn't a web GUI accessible on the IP address that it picked up, and you seem to have to download the app and use that for configuration. It'll work on Android, it'll work on iOS, it'll work on Windows to do the initial configuration. But I was looking through the bash history and the distribution to see what I was getting myself into before I actually let it run. It's based on a distro called Shenzen. I don't know if I'm saying that right. So at this point, I've tested TrueNAS and Shenzen on this platform and the configuration, and I don't really have any complaints. Shenzen caught me off guard a little bit, and that may be something that I want to look more into and understand it, but I understand Debian really well under the hood and how that works. And it's interesting. It's an interesting it has potential. It has potential to be a real contender for a NAS operating system that has all the bells and features that we all want, which is amazing. It's like media is a large part of it, but Docker also lets you run those things that I was mentioning before about like network supervision or parental supervision, like adding those apps and deploying them. Nextcloud is a Docker container. There's some image and video applications that should be on your radar for managing like your family photos and family movies. It's different context than like say Jellyfin. A book server, you know, you can run your own Caliber book server and have the world's library on here. I'm happy to report probably the world's only Thunderbolt connected RTX 6000 Pro, which is insane, shows up and works fine on this platform. You're going to be loading models at a relatively pokey 4 gigabytes per second, but with 96 gigs of VRAM, are you really going to be changing models all that often? It's not. You shouldn't do that. You should get something else if you're going to do that. But it does work. You could add a GPU to this via Oculink or USB 4. I want to try some other NAS operating systems on this. TrueNAS works out the box. The LEDs are maybe a little sketchy, but functionality-wise, it's there. And ZFS and the performance, oh my goodness. 5.1 gigahertz, 96 gigs of memory, all that room for virtual machines and containers and everything else. That's why you buy this, is because all of that runs really fast. Also, Forbidden Router. If you wanted to run your router as a virtual machine, which I really would only recommend if it's like a clustered solution so that you can move your router between hosts, because when this is down, taking literally everything with it is not optimal. But if you're in an apartment or you want to like downscale the home lab to be as little equipment as possible, you know, one of these plus something else to host the router virtual machine and some VLANs, working on a video for that sort of rounds up some of our past Forbidden Router content, works really well. I've got no complaints about the hardware. Minisforum has really put something special together, and it's a niche, but goodness gracious. I mean, you're gonna pay a premium for this. And if this is your first foray into the home lab, might I suggest that you don't. Instead, grab an old machine and do the same software square dance on an old computer. It could be, you know, one of the machines that's being retired because it can't run Windows 11. That would make a fantastic place to start. Get in there with the software, experiment, make sure that's something that you want to add to your life, to your repertoire. And if you do, then you look at this and it's like, wow, this is a small package. It's way more powerful probably than the old business class machine that I picked up. It's much quieter. It's probably going to use about the same, maybe less power. It's going to be more convenient if I've got more than a couple of hard drives attached to it. Then maybe it's worth the price of admission because you're doing all sorts of fun, amazing things with the platform. And one of this level 1 has been a quick look at the Minisforum N5 Pro. Why is it Pro? Well, it's got the Pro AMD CPU with 12 cores. And that means it supports ECC memory. The non-Pro CPUs don't support ECC memory on mobile. That's the thing. I'm This level 1. If you have any questions, I missed anything, you want to like hit me up to try to test something for you on this, let's chat in the forum. I'm signing out, and I'll see you there.